Hi guys, so this video is on logic statements. So we're in section 3.3. We've been talking about parallel lines and transversal and all the angle pairs that makes. We've been talking about some theorems that say if the lines are parallel, then certain angle groups are congruent or they're supplementary, or vice versa. If the angles are congruent or supplementary, then the lines are parallel. So these logic statements are just going to be another step that's going to help us with writing proofs in our next section. And we're going to be proving things about parallel lines and angles. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's learn what logic statements are. So a conditional statement is a statement that is written in if-then form. So we will have if, blah, 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 then, blah, blah, blah. So an example might be, if it meows, then it's a cat. Okay, that's obviously not a mathematical example, but that is the kind of statement that we're going for. So we have if one thing, then the other. So the if part of this statement is the hypothesis. It's called the hypothesis, and the conclusion is after then. Okay, so we're going to look at an example of a conditional statement, or a few of them, and we're going to locate the hypothesis and the conclusion. So again, hypothesis always comes after if, conclusion comes after then. So here's a couple examples of the type of statements we're talking about. We're going to use some that are not really mathematical, just so we can see how the statements work. I guess before we do that, we're going to look at the symbols that we may sometimes use. So sometimes we use the symbols P for hypothesis and Q for conclusion. Our statement would look like if P, then Q, or that P implies Q. So as we go through these, if you were wanting to write it in shorthand, you could say, well, P is equal to this hypothesis, and you could underline what P is equal to, and then Q is the conclusion, and you could underline what that is. That would just kind of give you a shorthand way to write it. Okay, so here's an example of a conditional statement. So the statement says, if you study hard, then you will get an A. Okay, so the hypothesis here is you study hard. The conclusion is you will get an A. And again, you just find the hypothesis by it comes after if, and the conclusion by it comes after then. Okay, now these statements may always be true. They may sometimes be true. They may not be true at all. And actually, they're considered to be not true at all if they're not true all the time, most of the time. But for this one, it is not always true, right? Sometimes you study hard and you still don't get an A. So just kind of think in the back of your mind about whether the statements are true or false, because that's going to help you as you go forward. So this says, if it is a turtle, then it is a reptile. So the hypothesis is it is a turtle. The conclusion is it is a reptile. Okay, so that would be true. Turtles are reptiles. Okay,
inconceivable!
So let's go on to the next one. We've got sound effects here. Okay, so example 1. Today is Monday if yesterday was Sunday. So this is just a statement, and I'm going to turn it into a conditional statement. I do notice that this one has an if in it, and after if comes yesterday was Sunday. So when I make my conditional statement, I'm going to leave that part as after if. So if yesterday was Sunday, then today is Monday. So our hypothesis here is yesterday was Sunday. So that's our hypothesis, or P, right? And today is Monday is our conclusion, so that would be Q, right? So hypothesis is P, conclusion is Q, okay? So let's look at another one. All triangles have 3 sides. So this is a statement, and I want to turn it into a conditional statement. So I'm going to make this into an if-then statement. So I could do that by saying something like, if a shape is a triangle, then it has 3 sides. Okay? So if it is a triangle, so the shape is a triangle, that's the hypothesis, then it has 3 sides. So it has 3 sides is the conclusion. Okay? And that is true, right? If it is a triangle, then it does have 3 sides. All right, so here's another one. Here's the statement. People who live in Ohio live in the United States. Now to turn that into a conditional statement, we would add the if and then. So the conditional statement would be, If you live in Ohio, then you live in the United States. Okay, so let's talk about the truthfulness of that. If you live in Ohio, do you live in the United States? Yes, you do. Okay, vertical angles are congruent is our statement. We're going to turn that into an if-then statement. So if two angles are vertical, then they are congruent. Okay. The hypothesis comes after if, so that's P. The conclusion comes after Q, or after then, and it is equal to Q. So if two angles are vertical, then they are congruent. So that's a conditional statement. Okay. So these conditional statements, we can also transform a little bit, and we can find the converse of these statements. So the converse statement is formed by switching the hypothesis and the conclusion of the conditional statement. So if my conditional statement is, if it is raining, then it is cloudy. Here's my hypothesis, it is raining. Here's my conclusion, it is cloudy. So to form the converse, I would switch them, and it would become, if it is cloudy, then it is raining. Okay? Now, sometimes these statements will be true, like if it is raining, then it is cloudy. That's true. If it's raining, there has to be clouds for the rain to come from. But the converse will sometimes not be true. If the converse is if it is cloudy, then it is raining, well, that's not true, right? It's not always raining just because it's cloudy. So just kind of think about that. Sometimes statements will be true one way and not true the other. Sometimes they'll be true both ways, okay? So an example of that would be with our theorems with parallel lines. The statement and its converse are both going to be true. If I have parallel lines and they're cut by a transversal, then the alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. Okay, that's true. And then if I switch it and say, if alternate interior angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel, that's still going to be true. So our theorems that we're looking at for this unit, they are going to be true as well as their converse being true. Okay. Just one last example. If our statement or our conditional statement is, if you love music, then you listen to your iPod, then the converse of that would be, if you listen to your iPod, then you love music. Okay? So our goal for this section really is just to understand how a conditional statement works and to be able to write the converse. So to take a statement, write it as a conditional statement using that if-then language, and then find the converse by switching the hypothesis and the conclusion. So good luck on your homework, and if you have any questions, just let me know.